Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Mirror podcast. This is Addie Sano. I am your host for today's podcast. Today we'll be talking with Chloe about her experience with residential therapy for an eating disorder and how her eating disorder evolved over time and other things that she continues to struggle with and how she gets through it now. So stay tuned. Oh, but this is Chloe, everyone. So Chloe, I'm going to turn the time over to you. Go ahead and share your story.
Okay. Hi. Let's see. I guess it all started when I was born.
Yes, doesn't it all?
Yeah. But I think kind of when I started to notice my brain wasn't working, was about junior year. I guess kind of the end of sophomore year, the beginning of junior year. I just had a really, really mean boyfriend.
Dang it.
Yeah, and he was like my first like official boyfriend. And it all just kind of happened really quickly. Like we met on Thursday, and then he got my number, and then he kissed me on Monday. And I was barely 16. And it was like Valentine's Day, and so it was all like flowers and super cutesy stuff. And we met in seminary, and so I was like, well, this can't be bad.
Yeah.
This is the Lord's way. And so yeah, it just happened really fast, and it started to get really bad really fast. And he was a senior and I was a sophomore, and my brother was a senior.
Okay.
And they weren't friends. If they knew each other, they've hated each other. But like my brother knew of him, and did not like him at all, and kind of thought that it was like a joke that I would be dating him. Especially just because like we didn't have anything in common. And really like I was just like young and excited about things, and he was interesting and sort of handsome. And so I didn't really care that we didn't like any of the same things and didn't care about any of the same things. I just kind of thought that's how it was. And so I didn't really have a lot of family support, just because I didn't really want to talk about him. My brother was like, this guy's a loser.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're hanging out with them. I didn't really talk to my parents about it because that was weird, because I was just barely dating. I'm like, I don't want my parents to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when it started to get kind of scary, crossing a lot of like sexual boundaries that I didn't know that I had, let alone how to like put them in place. I've since also realized that I'm very much asexual.
Yeah.
And so not only was I like uncomfortable with like boundaries that had been set in place from like going to church, but I was also like, I don't even like this. This doesn't even feel good. I don't want to be doing this like physically. This isn't like I'm trying to talk myself out of this because I want to be righteous, but like this is yucky. Yeah. But he was just really, really insistent on it. And he had an addiction to pornography. And just kind of expected me to be okay with everything.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just lost my voice in a lot of ways. Like he would just do really like inappropriate things like in public and around his friends and around his family. And if I like pointed it out, he would like get angry at me. Like he didn't want anybody to notice. And so me speaking up about it was like putting him at risk of getting caught. So I just had to keep my mouth shut. Eventually, at the end of the summer, so we started dating in February. At the end of that summer, he left on his mission and came back from the MTC after 3 days, because his addiction was so bad that he couldn't deal. And so when he came home, it was pretty obvious, like, okay, we're not going to speak. Like, you need to work on you, and I'm trying to go into a new year, and I was already like mentally preparing for you to be gone. Like, this is a lot right now. And like my parents were really like nice and helpful. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
My mom's calling me. I will tell her I'm busy. Okay. So sorry about that. But yeah, so they were really supportive, and his parents were really sweet to me too. Like, know that this isn't your fault. Like, we're not mad at you. We don't think anything bad about you. This is just something that like we need space and time to figure out.
Yeah.
And I was trying to go along with that. You know, like obviously I wanted to talk to him. I thought I loved him. I didn't know what that was, but I thought so.
Yeah.
And but he did not want to listen to our parents, which makes sense. He's 18. But yeah, so he would like get on his friends' phones and call me. He would like get burner phones and call me.
My goodness.
Yeah, because like his parents were going through his phone, like looking at his history to make sure that he wasn't, you know, looking at porn.
Mhm.
And then also they didn't want him talking to me.
Yeah.
And like at one point I went on a vacation with my sister to Hawaii.
Okay.
And I left I left my phone on the plane
Okay.
on the way there, and so I didn't have a phone the whole time. So he got my sister's phone number and was blowing up my sister's phone the entire trip, just like calling in the middle of the night, like making sure that I'm not doing anything or talking to anybody in some way, or like making sure that I wasn't wearing like clothes that were too revealing.
Oh my goodness.
Just like keeping tabs on me all the time. And my sister was like, I'm gonna kill this kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. This is just kind of how he is.
Yeah.
And so once the school year started, he started coming to football games at the high school, because I couldn't drive.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the only time we could meet up with each other. And he would come and see me there, and then just kind of take me away from everyone and do things that I didn't want to do. Just a lot of that. It was kind of constant. We would even go like harass his ex-girlfriends.
Oh.
Yeah, it like I would be in the passenger seat, and he'd be driving, and he would tell me to put my head down while we like drove past like where she worked.
Interesting.
Weird stuff. And just super like icky. And then he would like text her after that, and they would do things that I found out about later. So yeah, it was just really like in my face that he did not actually care about me at all as a person.
Yeah.
And so eventually he moved up to like live with his aunt and uncle, and up in like Idaho to kind of get away from like home. I guess he was kind of being like awful to his family, and
Yeah.
you know, he was going through a lot. Like I don't really blame him, but they kind of just were like, okay, you're either gonna like get your shit together or you're gonna go away. So he went away. And so he would always call me while I was at school. And you know, I was trying to be in class and pay attention and not be on my phone all the time. But if I didn't answer back within like a few seconds, really, there was like a 5-minute window where he was like, okay. But then if I didn't text him within that time, he would start calling me and calling me and calling me and calling me until I, you know, would get up and say, sorry, I have to go to the bathroom. And I would go outside. And he would just scream at me for like an hour. Just like it was kind of crying, like he was trying to like seem hurt and angry. And And it was just always my fault.
Yeah.
Because he was like, well, if you're not texting me, then you're texting somebody else, or you're making out with somebody else, or you're whatever he wanted to blame me for at the time. Or like he would have me, if while he was gone, he used to come like watch me like go into school to make sure that I wasn't wearing like pants that were too tight or anything.
Oh my goodness.
And then he would like get mad at me if I was. And so he would like ask me what I'm wearing and who I'm talking to. And like he would take up all of my time at lunch. So I didn't eat during lunch. Because I just had to be on the phone with him. And then kind of once he stopped screaming at me, he would, this was kind of a daily occurrence. But like once he stopped screaming at me, he would say that he had gotten a blowjob from some girl at his work or something like that. Just always something along those lines. And then he would start getting really sad and saying that he feels so bad and like he understands if I want to break up. But like he's not going to do it again and he wants to be better. So either like we would break up and like end up saying, okay, we can be done. Or I would say like, okay, it's fine. Like, I'm not mad. I understand it's okay. Like, cause I just didn't have any sense of security or boundaries.
Oh my gosh.
I was a very young person. And so either way, like I would go, like if we did break up, I would go into the bathroom to kind of like wash my face. My eyes were all puffy from crying. And before I was like even able to leave the bathroom, he would just give me this really long apology text of like, I'm so sorry. Like I love you more than anything. And I want this to work and I'll do anything to make this be okay. And so we would get back together by the time I got back into class. And it just happened every single day for the first like 3 months of my junior year. Eventually I started hanging out with just a friend. It ended up being something more later, but that wasn't a huge deal. But I would kind of talk to him and like, we would try to make plans and I'd say, oh no, my boyfriend says I can't do that. And my friend was like, okay, red flag. Like your boyfriend, he can't say what you can and can't do. Like you don't have to ask for his permission to go like get a bagel with your friend. And I was like, no, I do. And at that point he had like started threatening to kill himself if I stopped talking to him or if I broke up with him or if I started seeing anybody else. And so at one point, this friend and I were hanging out at my house. And my boyfriend was just on one of these things. He was saying that he was, especially because I was hanging out with a boy at my house. And so I remember he said that like he was in his car, like right in front of the edge of a cliff. And if I like didn't tell the boy to leave or do something, whatever he wanted, then he was just going to accelerate forward. So I like, so I showed my friend these texts and he's like, okay, so you're going to call the police. Like, this is not a 16-year-old girl problem. This is a law enforcement problem. And I was like, well, can I do that? Like, I can get somebody else involved and they can help me. And this kid was like, yes, please do that. And so I didn't end up calling the police, but I told my boyfriend, like, I'm going to call the police. Like, if you're actually going to kill yourself, then like, I have to get the police involved. And so he, called me and told me that he was fine and he wasn't going to do it. And eventually I was just like, I don't even remember if it was that day or how it really happened, but eventually I was just like, yeah, we gotta be done. Like, I'm over this. I can't handle this anymore. So, I mean, really kind of long intro there, but that was basically like my first exposure to romance. And so every other like dating situation that I got into after that I was like, oh, well, this is the way it works. And so like if people were nice to me, I got confused. And then like I was just really drawn to the people who like wanted to take advantage of me or cross my boundaries or not listen to me or just treat me like I was worthless.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, this is how it's supposed to be. So why would I want anything else?
Yeah.
And so, I had some hard things happen at the end of high school. I don't really want to get super into that. But like basically there was this girl that like I was already really jealous of. Like she was super pretty, super talented, super funny, like made lots of friends. And she was also really skinny. And I found out, I mean, she's definitely eating disorder skinny. Not that eating disorders have a look, but
it's true.
In that situation, she definitely, that's not the kind of skinny that people get naturally. And so, I had always kind of been drawn to eating disorders. Anytime that I had learned about them in health class or videos or whatever, I was like, that looks great. But I could never do that, so I'm not going to worry about it. But eventually, like this girl, I don't think it was intentional. I really don't have any bad feelings toward her, but I just like attached so much of my like identity to her because she was just kind of the better version of everything that I wanted. And so she ended up getting in a relationship with my ex-boyfriend, different boyfriend than the bad one, but just this boy that I was still totally in love with. And she got into art school, and she even cut her bangs to look like mine. And so I was like, okay, so you stole like my talent, you stole my boyfriend, you stole my hair, you stole like my like all of the dreams for my life, and I can't do any of that. But what I can do is get real skinny. Because like if I can't have anything that you have, then like I can have that. That's something that is in my control. And so right after high school, I ended up getting in another abusive situationship. He didn't want to date me because I wouldn't have sex with him. And so like there was a lot of emotional attachment, but when he got horny, he would go hang out with his friend. And so like while I was already really sensitive and sad, it was like, okay, so this guy too, like this is just who I am. This is what matters about me, is my sexual availability and whether or not people find me attractive, because if I'm not attractive, then I have nothing to offer. I'm not talented, I'm not smart, I'm not funny, I don't have any friends.
Wow.
Like I just have to be pretty. And the only way to be pretty, I can't change my face. I did not like my face. But if I have an attractive body, then we're good to go. And so it was kind of a slow burn. I ended up going vegan that summer, which is something that is really meaningful to me. Just like ethically, it was always kind of something that I wanted to do, but couldn't really figure out. And so for a couple months, I was like, okay, I'm a vegan. Like I'm not really restricting, but like I'm eating in line with my morals, and that works better for me. But eventually, I was working 2 jobs, and I quit both of them at the end of the year to go to school. And I had ended up, just kind of in like losing my schedule and going to a totally new environment, trying to do college, which is so different from high school, and not knowing anybody there. And, I had to pack my own lunch every day, and I just didn't want to keep doing that. And so I stopped eating a lot during that period. And as a result, I started getting really tired, and really kind of like I had a brain fog kick in pretty quick. And so I stopped going to class. I didn't even like go online to drop out or withdraw or anything. I just kind of ghosted Slick. So that was like the beginning of 2018. And then by March, like, and the entire year of 2018, I don't remember anything from March to December.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was just so out of it. Like I remember little things. Like I know that like that's when I first started seeing a doctor for my
Yeah.
problem. And she was like, you need to go to residential treatment.
Yeah.
This is kind of urgent. And I was like, you're full of shit. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so I stopped going to that doctor.
Okay.
And like I took a little like solo trip up to Seattle to try and kind of get it together, but I just ended up um not doing so well up there. Because at this point I couldn't really maintain the level of restriction. And so I would go all day sleeping, really, so that I wasn't hungry. But then as soon as my family was asleep, I would get up and eat everything in the kitchen and then go downstairs and throw it all up. And so that was happening every single day. I think maybe the longest I went during 2018 without binging and purging was like 2 days.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just constant. And so yeah, I was still meeting with a therapist once a week, and we kind of just had the same conversations over and over.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna try and get rid of this until I'm skinny, because that's gonna solve all my problems.
Yeah.
And I just could not get it out of my head. I was like, there's no other solution to what's going on than to get really skinny.
Yeah.
And at that point, I already was like an unhealthy weight, but not where I wanted to be. And with the binging and purging, my weight loss had plateaued. And so I was just getting really angry all the time, but I couldn't stop because that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
When you have an eating disorder, it's not something you can say, hey, enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it was just a mess. And by like the beginning of December, I kind of looked back on the year and was like, okay, so that sucked. Like nothing happened this year that I'm happy with, that I'm proud of, that feels good to me in any way whatsoever. And so I guess if like I'm either going to be stuck doing this for the rest of my life, or I'm going to go to treatment and let my parents sleep at night. And so so I agreed at like the beginning of December to go to treatment. And just kind of spent that whole month preparing, and I went in the first week of January of 2019.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of ups and downs. I was there the first time for 3 months, well, I guess 2, from January to March.
Okay.
And then I got out. This was like residential. And I can like definitely get into what that was like. But I kind of lose track of what happened every time.
Yeah.
So the first time I was there, January to March, and then I lived in kind of a sort of an in-between house. So I would go for day treatment, but I would sleep in this apartment on my own. And I think it was about like 2-3 weeks before the exact same behavior started coming back. And I was just lying to my dietitian constantly. I didn't like her, and I didn't want to listen to her, and I just didn't like her. So I ended up switching dietitians because my roommate at the halfway house was like, Chloe, this is not what you want to do. And like she and I would kind of get in eating disorder fights. She and I were really, really close, but like when both of our eating disorders were really loud, we would just freak out on each other.
Yeah.
And then after we had like some time to cool down, we would both get together and like cuddle and be like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Like this isn't us. This isn't good for our relationship, for who we are as individuals.
Yeah.
This is just all bad. And so I ended up switching dietitians and going back into treatment. And so I was there from want to say June to August.
Okay.
So another couple months the second time. And then eventually I went back to doing day programming, but I did it at a facility that was closer to my house.
Yeah.
It was the same Center for Change. They're based in Orem, but they also have a location in Cottonwood Heights, and I live around there, and so I could stay at my parents' house with them and go to day treatment in Cottonwood Heights. And so that ended up working really well, and I stepped my way down, and by the end of September, I discharged. And so that was kind of a party. I felt pretty good about it. And then I got a job during the summer at the Grand America Hotel downtown, which is like the hotel where like that's where like, like famous people stay if they have like a concert, or like the president stays there if he ever comes to Utah. And so it was just really like bougie, high class job, which is not who I am as a person at all, but it was just really fun to be around that.
Yeah.
And so I worked at the pool during the summer, and then I worked at like the lobby cafe, making cute little lattes and giving people croissants. And then eventually they moved me over to the buffet. And I think you can kind of see where this is going.
Yep.
Just constant access to food. And I really didn't have a whole lot to do. It was just like, make sure that all of the trays are full, and make sure that like nobody's getting salad all over everything, like just kind of keep it looking nice, say hi to people.
Yeah.
And I did really like that job. I got to meet people from all over. I had people come in from Turkey. I had people from like Poland and France, and I speak French and got to talk to them, and I felt really cool about myself. And just kind of being around that like language and culture while also just being in my city. Just was really cool for me. But eventually I would go in at like 5 a.m. and leave at 3, and I never had a break.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't eat before, and I wouldn't eat during, and I wouldn't eat after for the first little bit. And then eventually it started catching up with me. And so I was at work, and the food smelled amazing. It was like really, high class, expensive food, and just being around that all the time. And like during slow hours at the buffet, I would just eat everything and then go into the bathroom and hope that nobody heard me as I tried to get it all up in enough time to go back and work without anybody noticing I was gone. So it was just very like rushed, very high anxiety, super like just everything was bad. And I like didn't really tell anybody about it. And I like didn't trust any of my coworkers. Like I thought they were all great people, but it was like, I can't talk to you about this. And so at that point I had my mom and I both have pretty bad depression. And she had been doing ketamine infusions. Just off of I don't remember where she like heard of it or started trying it, but it was working really well for her. And so at the beginning of 2020, I started doing those. And kind of throughout that process, like I subconsciously processed a lot of my trauma from work, which was really cool because that would have been a lot. But since I was kind of processing that, and I had like this cool guy I was dating at the time, and like my family knew about what was going on a little bit more, like I was able to say, okay, this is definitely getting out of control. I'm not happy. I don't feel good. And so I went back to treatment March of 2020, and I did the exact same thing that I had done the year before, like treatment for a couple months, like residential for a couple months, and then day treatment for a while, back to residential, day treatment, discharge. And so that I felt Actually, no, I didn't feel good leaving that time. It was mostly that like I hated treatment so bad. And like I just thought all the therapists were like total whack jobs. And like the food was getting really old. Like they just kind of served the same thing on a monthly rotation. And I'd been there for 10 months and I was just getting over it. And I was just so sick of it. Like I would just go to treatment and be so angry.
Yeah.
And I don't handle anger well. I'm just not a very angry person.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, no, I'm super done with this.
Yeah.
And so when I left treatment, this would have been January 2021. I was just sort of like, I'm done. Center for Change sucks. I never want to go anywhere near that place. I don't want to talk to anybody from Center for Change. I don't want to interact with anybody at all. I just had a really hard breakup with this boyfriend, and I just feel like an idiot and everything is bad. And so I kind of just like spaced out from everything, and went on a pretty significant like self-destructive rampage almost. Like I was sleeping with so many strangers, and like I wasn't doing any major drugs. I would get high, just like smoke weed pretty often. I would like sleep all the time, and just like I just didn't really care about anything. I didn't bother getting a job. I didn't get like any therapist for a while. I didn't meet with a dietitian. I didn't meet with my my like psychiatrist to get my meds in order. I was just like, fuck it, I'm done. And so over the course of that summer, is when I, because the eating disorder behaviors evolve. And so it's always kind of been a combination of things. But 2021, that summer, it ended up being mostly restriction, because at that point I had just really like given up. I was like, I don't care. Like I was super suicidal. And I was like, well, obviously this binge purge thing isn't going to kill me. And I can't like hang myself because my parents will be sad. And just really this totally apathetic, really like sad and scary mindset. And I ended up getting pretty scary, unhealthy. Like just the lowest weight that I've been at since a very long time. And so, but I like still wanted to lose more, and I was working, and I was kind of waiting for my coworkers to say something, because then at that point I would be like, oh, okay, people are noticing that I need help. But they didn't, and I think that's because they were scared I was gonna die. So I don't know, I was working and loving it, and I was planning on going to school. And I just didn't want treatment to get in the way. But eventually, like, my mom started like waking up from nightmares that like she woke up and came in, in these dreams, she would like come down to my room to wake me up and I'd be dead. And like I started sleeping in her bed because she was scared that I would, because I had a couple times like gotten out at night to self-harm or been purged or whatever, and my body was just so sensitive and like fragile at this point that like even like behaviors that I'd done for a really long time were like I was at a lot higher risk of something really bad happening. And so I had very much decided like I'm not going anywhere near Center for Change ever again, but like maybe we can look around. And so through like a really difficult and complicated process of like figuring out insurance and like what could be covered and what I qualified for and what I didn't, we ended up finding this treatment place down in Las Vegas called Eden. which I do not recommend in any capacity whatsoever. I think kind of the only reason that I haven't gone back to treatment since Eden is because it was so scary and horrible that I was like, no, like if I do that again, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I learned a lot, and I was able to like follow a vegan diet there, and I think that's kind of what helped me the most, was like understanding, you know, because I had just like the meanest dietitians at Center for Change that were like, yeah, like, no, you can't do vegan. Like, you don't get to care about animals in the environment because like you're never going to get enough nutrition, and like it was just a mess. Such a mess. And so like I just was never taken seriously about it until I went to Eden, and I was like, wait, this is amazing. And so that felt really good and really validating. And I met some of the coolest people ever. And I did have some really good insights in like therapy sessions. But as far as like Eden as a facility and the program, like, no, it's a big fat no. Like I'm surprised that they're not like legally shut down.
Oh,
like it's a very dangerous place.
That's not good.
Yeah, I wrote a whole like pretty long review on, there's like a residential treatment center review website. And I wrote a pretty hefty review that is probably worth a read.
Good.
I put a lot of detail into it, but yeah, so that place is a nightmare. I really liked being in Vegas, and like when I did day programming down there, I stayed in an Airbnb. And made some really cool friends. I went dancing a lot and like just hung out in Vegas and did all the Vegas things. And I just totally loved it. So yeah, I came home from that really not any better, but with a little more spunk. Like the like eating disorder thoughts were still there, and the habits were still there to a degree. But I knew that I couldn't go back. Just because I was so done and tired. That it was just a mess. And it ended up being good in that, like, really kind of the main takeaway was like, so no one here is gonna take care of me or keep me safe or healthy or happy or well at all. Like it was just a whole thing. I could give you a million examples of all the things that they did wrong. But kind of being there, I was like, okay, well, like this is sort of my option. This is where I am. And so I can either like, you know, take advantage of the really terrible quality of care here, and just let it make me sicker, or I can figure out how to take care of myself. And so I did to an extent. It was kind of like the beginning of, so I got out in the December of 2021. And so like at the beginning of 2022, I decided that like I was gonna kind of make my own decisions about like how I eat, and like you know, at this point I was like, I'm basically a dietitian. I'm basically a therapist. Like I have been in some level of treatment for a combined 2.5 years. Since 2019, maybe more. I haven't really done the math. I know I was in residential specifically for 18 months. And so I was I kind of got not really a confidence boost in like myself. Like I still really hated myself. But I was like, well, okay, but I know what I'm doing. And so it was still like a weird adjustment period. And there was this really cool boy. It's a bummer that like my life is kind of in phases of like who I was dating at the time.
I understand. It's all good.
Yeah, but it just is. but there was just this super cool boy that had been interested in me since like before I went to Eden. And so he kind of saw the like really scary things that like I had been doing to myself. And so he was all team happy Chloe. And just really liked me. He was just a total sweetheart. And it kind of took me a while to figure out that like that's a good thing to have and to look for, because I think it, like, I wasn't quite right in like establishing a relationship with him. Like I think I did just kind of need more time to like explore myself and like what I wanted out of life, especially like being in, well, out of treatment, I guess, sort of in recovery.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was really fair to him for me to say, okay, yeah, I'll be your girlfriend, because
Yeah.
I kind of just didn't want to lose him in my life.
Yeah.
And it kind of just became like, like he would say like, I really like you and I really want to date you and be with you, but if you can't really commit to that, he was like, I don't really think that I can like emotionally handle just being friend zoned.
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of too much for him. Not that he was like pressuring me really, but he wanted to give me an ultimatum, just to kind of protect himself. And I was like, okay, well, super selfishly, I was like, I don't think that I have like that emotional attachment to you. Like I really liked him.
Yeah.
And I cared about him a lot as a person, but I wasn't like in love with him like I should have been
Gotcha.
in order to like step into a serious relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and so like the beginning of our romance was not how I would have liked it to go.
Yeah.
Because I was just kind of out of it, and I was just really committed to counting my calories. Because
Mm.
I had kind of decided on like an arbitrary number of calories that like I had kind of gathered from like stupid internet resources of like based on my height and weight and age and gender, like how much should I be eating, or like conversations I'd had with dietitians or whatever, like weird mix of things. I landed on a number. And so I was like putting most of my focus into like, weighing my food in like grams to make sure that like I'm counting exactly how many I'm supposed to have and
Yeah.
not at all going over that, and never like, correcting if I went under it the day before or anything like that. I just put all of my attention and energy into a very strict calorie limit. And in kind of like having my mindset on one thing, and that thing not being my serious relationship that I was in. I ended up just being really careless with a lot of things. And not that like being sick was an excuse, because I did have like thoughts. I was a conscious person. And I like acknowledge that like it's on me just as much as it's on my eating disorder.
Yeah.
But I was just not a good girlfriend.
Yeah.
It wasn't, going out and like making out with people or like actively physically cheating, but there was some like emotional betrayal. And like once I started school, like there was like this cute boy in my art class that I was trying to pretend like it wasn't a big deal, but it was. And I would just get really kind of dismissive of the way that I was making my boyfriend feel. And like we had been going to therapy together, but we just had terrible boundaries and were really codependent. And I was still just so absorbed in my eating disorder and in weighing and counting and measuring and like I would never let him make me dinner.
Yeah.
Because I didn't trust him. We went out to restaurants very rarely. And I would always get the same thing if we did go out. We ended up moving in together August of 2022. And that was really good in a lot of ways and really bad in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so it took me quite a while to kind of get my shit together. And by that point, like, there had already been enough trauma and damage that like neither of us knew how to deal with.
Yeah.
And so like eventually we had taken like a week or so of a break to kind of collect our thoughts. And
Yeah.
over that, this was in January of this year. Over that week, I was just home alone at my parents' while they were on vacation, like hanging out with the cats.
Yeah.
And I was doing like an art project or something, and I was watching Hairspray,
Oh, yeah.
the musical. And you know, I've always loved that musical in particular. I think the songs are super fun. I like a lot about it, but I didn't really think about it much. And it's kind of funny that Hairspray is the thing that got me.
It's
Like,
really funny.
yeah, like after doing 4 years of treatment, I watched Hairspray. And and like really, like I was kind of just singing along, having a good time. And then like it kind of hit me that really like the main kind of plot of Hairspray is Tracy, the main character,
Mhm.
is this adorable, like fat high schooler that totally loves herself. She loves to dance. She loves like she just got her things that she loves, and she's like she loves food, and she loves to sing and dance, and there are so many things in the way of her doing that, but she's like, I'm not going to change what I look like and who I am because I know I'm a damn good dancer. And she like gets on this like TV show for like dancers. It's like a local Baltimore like teenagers dance, and it's a thing. And then kind of over the course of the movie, it's set in the 60s. And so there's a lot of like civil rights things going on. You know, like this TV show doesn't allow any Black people except once a month. They have Negro Day, where the Black
Yeah.
people and the white people are separated by a rope, and
Yeah.
like the Black people get a dance and the white people. But yeah, so Tracy befriends this Black guy and his kind of group of people when she goes to detention one day, because the Black kids are always in detention, and she gets to know them, and you know, they dance together, and dancing is kind of the main concept of Hairspray. But she you know, for all the like love of dancing that she has, and she has this cute little crush at school, and she's trying to, you know, like impress the people who don't want her to be dancing on the show, and she's trying to impress this guy that she likes, and just do the things that are like her dream. You know, she wants to be like a famous dancer, singer, performer. But then like there's a moment in the show where like they're like closing down Negro Day, that like once a month thing that they do, and so like it's just kind of a big step of like Black people are not allowed on TV.
Yeah.
And so they go march, they go protest. And Tracy is like right at the front. She's white. I don't know if I established that. Tracy's white. And she's right at the front with everybody, like speaking up about like, this is not okay, like integrate TV, integrate everything, like there's no reason for us to keep being racist, this is silly.
Yeah.
And she just gets in trouble for being there. They don't want the protest to be happening, and she doesn't really want them to not care, right? And so she kind of makes a big deal out of it and gets in trouble with the law, and puts like her whole dream, like the dream of her life, at risk, and like her relationship at risk, and really like she gets in legal trouble, like she's threatened to go to like jail, and she's like, no, I don't care. Like I know that I'm a good dancer. I know that there are so many people that don't want me to dance because I'm fat, and because I am like pro integration and like I hang out with Black people, and she's just got like all these things in her way, and she doesn't care because she knows what she does care about and what matters to her, and she's willing to like sacrifice the things that she really like wants for the things that really matter.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that I'm sure, you know, Hairspray is not that uncommon of a musical, but just kind of watching that, and like toward the end I was just crying my eyes out, because I just kind of, it really hit me that like I care so much about equal rights, about feminism, like I hate capitalism, I hate the man, I hate corporations. Like there are so many things that I want to be more active in, and the fact that I'm letting weight get in the way of that is like just goes against everything. And I had, you know, had similar moments and conversations before, but something about watching Hairspray just made it click for me.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is really crazy. Like I remember calling my parents like, are you sitting down, because you're not going to believe what I'm saying right now, but I'm actually going to stop with this eating disorder thing now. And it was really just overnight.
That's
it was so unexpected.
yeah.
And I really just never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
Like I just always thought that like I would be sick for my whole life, and that would just be something that I had to deal with. And I mean, obviously it's not like I'm like fully recovered now, doing great. Like I still definitely have a lot that I need to work on, but like just kind of from that moment, like I deleted my fitness pal right then, and just started paying a lot more attention to my like cravings and hunger cues, and was just eating a lot more than I would have normally been okay with, because I was just like, well, this is what my body wants, and I'm not going to say, no, body, sorry, we're done.
Yeah.
Because it's not my decision. And so it was really kind of crazy. And like my body had a hard time adjusting to like eating a good amount of food.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wasn't like, at times I would have like the urge to purge or to like binge to the point of like discomfort. And then to like, you know, if I ate a lot on one day, I'd be like, okay, well, that was kind of a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
But I was able to talk myself out of it really quick, and just kind of just keep going. And so, you know, I mean, that didn't save my relationship. It didn't, you know, I had failed all of my classes the previous semester, literally all of them. I was taking 5 classes, and the highest grade I got was a D plus. Like I was still really struggling in school, and my boyfriend and I did end up breaking up anyway, and that was really hard, but something that I've been, you know, normally I would cope with not eating or eating a lot and throwing up or sleeping all the time or exercising or whatever
Yeah.
to do, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
And that just was totally mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
And like even, you know, I'd get into like these really big depressive slumps, and that's kind of been the lingering thing for me. Like in a lot of ways my eating disorder was a coping mechanism for how depressed I was,
Yeah.
which did not help. It was not a good coping skill. It made me
Yeah.
but like that kind of came back, and I have since been, you know, I've done more ketamine treatments, which are really helpful. That's really kind of the only thing that works consistently.
Yeah.
I'm on a pretty hefty cocktail of medications. I meet with my therapist at least every 2 weeks. She's a wizard. She
Awesome.
and I, you know, I've had so many therapists over all of my treatment stays and different levels of treatment and different places. Like I've had a lot of therapists.
Yeah.
But this lady, her name's Amy Hadfield. She is an experiential therapist.
Oh, cool.
She works out of Salt Lake, and so it's not a lot of like sit down talk therapy.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty good at it. I've kind of done that.
Yeah.
But Amy does a lot with like kind of getting past the frontal like conscious part of your brain and getting back into the subconscious. You know, a lot of like the body keeps the score.
Yes,
kind of
sure.
where like deep down somewhere, like in your heart, in your mind, in your physical body, like you know what's wrong, even if you can't like consciously conjure up like this is what's going on for me, this is where my problem is. But if you're able to do, you know, like psychodrama, or you're able to kind of make art about it, or like sand tray therapy is a popular kind of experiential thing, just all kinds of things like that. Like if you're able to externalize it in sort of a kind of a mindless way, where you just sort of let your like intuition make the decisions, then you're able to connect a lot deeper. And I don't really get it. I don't know how to like explain how it works, but it is totally magical. And has totally changed the game for me. So I'm definitely still working on it. I am still really depressed all the time. And if I you know, if I'm not really like vigilant about, you know, keeping up on eating and having a bunch of snacks available all the time, and getting on like I'm on a really bad sleep schedule anyway. But like, you know, as long as I am sleeping at least a little bit every night, and I'm taking a shower and brushing my teeth, like I have to be really intense about that. But I'm definitely in a lot better habits than I ever thought I would be.
Good.
Yeah, and so it still is kind of like unbelievable to even be talking about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I just never, you know, like 2 years ago, I right before I went into Eden, like I was wearing like sweatshirts and sweats in the middle of the summer because I was so cold I couldn't move, and I was like crying my eyes out for hours because my mom was making rice in the kitchen and I could smell it. And I was so terrified of food, and I was so terrified of like acknowledging my body or feeling my body, and like my clothes didn't fit, and I didn't like want to go buy clothes because I knew I wasn't healthy. But like, my clothes were just like falling off of me. And I had just kind of accepted like I'm never gonna be okay. This is just it. Like this like fear that I feel, like I just did not believe that it would be possible to get away from that. And I mean, you know, not just like 2 years ago, but like all of the times that I've been so unwell over the last 6 years. I didn't think that I would be able to do it. And now it's like almost second nature.
That's awesome.
Which is so mind-blowing. Like literally just saying that out loud, I'm like, what?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so mind-blowing. But it's pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know. I remember like getting really frustrated about you know, like I really appreciate a lot of like recovery like accounts or like messages and things like on social media. That's always been really helpful for me, but I've also been like, well, fuck you guys. Like, especially because like a big part of my mindset around it was like, I chose this. I wanted to have an eating disorder more than anything in the whole world. I put all my heart, my mind, and strength into being very, very sick. And so I didn't want to get rid of it. It wasn't like, oh, you didn't choose to have an eating disorder, but you can choose to recover. I was like, no, I did choose to have an eating disorder, and I choose to not recover. And so like I really like I don't really understand why it clicked now,
Yeah.
like a couple months ago, because I was still so adamant that I would never get better and I would never want to get better, and I would just learn to manage it so that I wasn't almost dying, but so that I could still spend all of my time counting my calories and never eat anything scary and
Yeah.
never gain any weight and just keep things under control. But then something clicked. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I wish that I could say that there's like, this, like all this hard work that I did to like, I decided that I wanted to get better. And so I was going to like work really hard and I had all these things in the way. It's like, I really didn't want to
Yeah.
until I watched Hairspray.
That's
Like,
so funny.
it's so weird. And
Yeah.
like, if you had told me at any time in the last 6 years that that is what would do it, I would just be super sick, and then one day I would watch Hairspray and I would be better after that. Like I would laugh in your face
Yeah,
and,
I'm sure.
and tell you to get the fuck out of my way. Like I I was not at all. Also, sorry if your podcast is
You're
clean.
fine. I just
Okay.
click explicit if that's what happens. You're all good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I don't know, like I would not have believed it even like in December
Yeah.
or like the beginning of January or a couple days before I watched Hairspray. Like it was not like a gradual like I'm getting better, I'm feeling good about this.
It was a good slap in the face.
Yeah, it
Slap in the
100%
face.
was. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good. Good.
Yeah, so I don't know. That was kind of my story, I guess. Like it's not really over for sure. I have a lot of
No,
work.
yeah. Yeah, and we all do, but thank you for being brave enough to share, because I'm sure that there are people out there that are struggling and that are like exactly how you are. Just, I chose this eating disorder. I chose to be this way because I wanted it. And so I'm sure that there's other people that are going to need to hear what you have to say. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've never like talked about it on
Yeah.
like social media or anything. Like all my friends know because all of my friends are from treatment. But like it's never been something that I've talked about because I feel like I'm kind of a weird case.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Weird is good.
Yeah. So it probably would have been nice to hear someone like me talking about this. So
Well, I appreciate it, Chloe.
yeah,
And I'm
so
sure other
thank you
people
for the
will
chance.
too.
Thank you.
Bet. You bet. Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Mirror Women Embracing Self-Love and Healing podcast. We are so grateful you were here. If you or anyone you know has struggled with an eating disorder or body image issues, or is currently struggling and would be willing to share their experience and maybe get a little bit of help along the way, please drop your information below, as I'm sure other people can learn from your story too. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode.